This is a Sony CDP-C245 CD player. It's a 5-disc player and kind of rough shape, a little dirty. It came out of a dumpster from my good buddy. He grabbed this for me and I plugged it in and tried it. Display comes up okay, but it won't play any discs, so obviously it's got a problem with it, so I'm going to see if I can remedy that. That's the next step. This unit is a Sony CDP-C245. I couldn't find a service manual for this, but I did find one for the CDP-C235 C335. And I believe they have the same laser assembly. So I've got the information I need. Unfortunately, if you look in here, you can see 3 pots on the board in there. This is focusing right. Unfortunately, they didn't give you any openings on the back where you can make adjustments. Okay, you can see the 3 adjustment pots on the board in the laser assembly there, and I believe from left to right that's a tracking balance on the left, the focus bias in the middle, and the power laser auto power control on the right, I believe. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to actually drill holes. The metal back of the unit has been removed and it's got this plastic back here. I'm going to try drilling an access hole, or a couple of them, where I can get a long screwdriver in and actually make adjustments on those adjustments while trying to while looking at the output laser output on a scope, and see if I can improve the tracking when I'm using a CDR. Anyway, that's the next step. Unfortunately, with some of these drives, you don't have access to the test points. Now, these test points are mounted on the laser drive here, and of course you can't get to them when it's in the unit. If you want to play it with the unit sitting upright, this would be facing down. So what I did is I tacked on leads to the test points so I could access them with a scope, especially the RF output pin to look at the E pattern. One of the problems with this is these long leads here are going to introduce a lot of noise, so I have to allow for that. When I'm observing that E pattern on the scope, there's going to be a little more noise, but I really didn't have any choice in this matter here. Here's the connections I've got on the pickup here. The black and brown is ground, and the white with brown is the RFO test point on the laser unit. I clean the rail here on the sled, and I don't notice any binding at all. It seems to be mechanically anyway working all right. This is a KSS 240A laser assembly. I may have some of these down in the donation barn here. I'll have to check and see. This unit might have quite a few hours on it, I'm not sure. Did clean the laser, of course that didn't help. On this particular unit, you've got your 3 adjustment pots down here. You've got the power control on the right. The middle has the focus adjustment, the bias adjustment here, and the tracking balance on the left. First, to get access to these pots while the unit's together is difficult, of course. And as the sled moves to the rear, this angle makes it pretty much impossible to adjust these, so you have to do it when the laser is near the center or the beginning of the disc here. And I can access it through holes that I drilled in the back of the unit here and get a screwdriver in to adjust it. I don't know how the factory, when they put these in, if they were adjusted on some type of a jig before they put them in the unit. I don't know, because access to these is pretty tough once the unit's mounted in the CD player here. I've adjusted these about as best I can. I'm going to set the levels here so they're optimum for CDRs, since that's what I play in here most of the time. This is the spindle that drives the disc. Underneath is a spindle motor that you can see under here. There's of course a bearing in the top of this motor here. It's a type of oilite bearing, sintered metal bearing, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to try a little lubrication on that and see if it will help. I think this unit is probably wearing out a little bit. There's a little bit of run out that I noticed, and you can notice it when you watch the scope pattern. You can watch the E pattern jitter vary with the rotation of the spindle. Okay, we're looking at the I pattern here on the RF test point. It's a little over 600 millivolts, which is way too low. So now I'm going to play a disc that's stamped. And you see the I pattern here we're looking at. Yeah, we're looking at about a volt. So it's almost 200 millivolts more. I've got the volume down here. So playing a CDRW, the signal's too low. I'm going to try adjusting the bias and the focus and the gain and see if I can get a little better I pattern on this unit here. This is a test disc. And there again, only about 600 millivolts. Okay, I raised the gain just a hair. Using a CDR, you can see now I've got just over a volt. And it seems to be, at least it likes Elvis. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, I'm going to let this run through and see if it will track the rest of the disc. This is a service manual for the Sony CDP-C245 335. If you look on the instructions here, looking at the I pattern, the RF signal, they're calling for 1.2 volts plus 0.2 minus 0.4 volts peak to peak. And I'm playing a CD here and looking on the scope with 200 millivolts per division. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 1 volt, just a little over 1 volt, about 1.2 to 1.4. And it's a little bit jittery, but not really bad. I'm gonna see if I can clean that up a little bit with the bias, the tracking, and the bias adjustment, the focus adjustment. But it seems to be running pretty good. Anyway, the CDRs that I burned resulted in a lower voltage, and the unit didn't like that. So now that we're within the parameters, it seems to be playing it okay. So you got to be careful too. You don't want to adjust that gain too high. If you drive the laser with too high of a level, you're going to cut down the longevity of the laser. So you just want to keep that pattern within the parameters here. Okay, it doesn't like this disc. Let's see what that one is. That's a Memorex too, but it's an older one. I'm not sure of the quality. Some of these are getting a little old. I'm going to try a different one, see what happens. Here's the disc I had trouble playing with. Notice the wobbling here. And now notice the pattern on the scope, how it wobbles in sync with the wobbling of the disc. So I wonder if that's just a bad stamping of the disc. I'm going to run, this is a stamp disc, a commercial disc, in number 4. So I'm going to play that one and see if that wobbles as bad. Maybe this mechanism is... Wow, look at how high the amplitude is on this one. .6. That's way off. Let's see. I may have to do a compromise here. This one doesn't have the wobble as bad, and the level is actually lower. Well, it likes ABBA. I think that's Patty's favorite. So this disc didn't like. The rest of them played fine, so I guess it's kind of particular about discs. No problem with stamp discs. Commercial discs play just fine. There's no problem. It's just CDRs, and I guess some of them it doesn't like it. I could maybe try tweaking this a little bit more, but I think I'll leave it as it is. It's playing fine. I don't want to increase the gain anymore. Anyway, this CD player came out of a dumpster, pretty dirty. I cleaned up the outside. The inside's pretty good shape. Somebody threw it away. It just took a small adjustment to get it working. What I had to do was drill access holes in the back so I could get access to the adjustments. This is the back of the unit. If you take this back off, I think there's 3 or 4 screws, this sheet metal backing, it exposes the plastic back, and if you drill a couple access holes, you can get a fine blade screwdriver like this. You can get in through the holes. Be careful you don't short anything out. Could have gone a teeny bit higher with these, but there is a screw in the back. You don't want to interfere with that. Anyway, don't throw out your CD players. Sometimes they can be salvaged. think that's the best I'm going to do here. This is 1 kilohertz. Still a lot of jitter. I've tweaked those controls as best I can, and that's about it. And this is a CDR, so it's burned on a computer. And the amplitude 1.2, 1.4, that's what they want according to the manual. So I'm going to put this back together, and I guess that's it. That's all we're going to tweak out of this one. Okay, I'm going to hit play. Watch how the eye pattern develops here. A little delay. Now I'm going to go to the next track right now. Now there it stabilized fairly quick. We're still getting all that jitter, but that's about the best I can do here. The unit cleaned up pretty good. And it seems to be working good. We can run the fast forward. Track 2. Track 4. Fast forward works. We can skip ahead to another disc. Disc 3. Track 1. Track 2. Okay, well, I think this unit's ready to be used somewhere, maybe out in the garage. If you're going to work on any of these older units, in fact this one had a date of December of 1994, so it's a pretty old unit. So the laser's probably getting pretty weak. But remember, if you're going to try to play CDRs on these things, you might have problems with them. Because back when this was made, of course, you didn't really have that opportunity to do that. But anyway, sometimes you can get away with adjusting the laser, but you have to be careful. You don't want to turn it up too much because the laser will burn out if you turn the gain up too high. You got to remember too that the CDRs that you burn on your computer, they're going to reflect less light than a commercial CD that's stamped, so you're going to have a lower level to deal with. The signal you're going to want to measure is the eye pattern, which you'll usually find on a test point. It'll say something like RF out or other description to it. But anyway, that will give you the eye pattern. And what you want to do is adjust between the 3 controls, the tracking, the balance, and the gain. You want to adjust for minimum jitter and the more stable pattern. And you also want to make sure that you don't turn the gain up too high. On this particular unit, they were calling for about 1.2 volts. And they seem to play CDRs okay at that level. One of the ways you can minimize the jitter is to adjust the focus gain and the tracking gain. And you want to find a balance where you're going to have the minimum amount of jitter. On this unit I had a little trouble because the 3 controls were not available to me without drilling holes in the back. I couldn't run the unit, run it live and actually make an adjustment. So I had to modify it by drilling holes in the back of it. Considering it came out of a dumpster, that's not a big deal. This one might have spindle bearings that on the spindle motor. The bearing may be wearing because I noticed a little run out, but it still seems to play all right. One thing nice when some of the newer units, when they came out with the digital servo circuits, you didn't really have to worry about a lot of these adjustments. It was all done automatically. I noticed more noise in my setup. One of the reasons is those leads that I tacked onto the laser board. Those flying leads probably introduced a little bit of noise, which didn't help in the adjustment. Seems to work a little better now that I removed those leads and I put the unit back together. It seems to actually operate a little bit better. And back to the E pattern. If you increase the gain too much, you're going to end up adding noise, and if the gain is too low, you're going to have skip. So it's kind of a fine balance. But it's worth trying on these old units. This one came out of a dumpster, so I really didn't have anything to lose. So good luck if you decide to do it yourself. If you want to work on these CD players, here's 2 books I really recommend. They've helped me a lot learning both repair techniques and the circuitry of these devices. One is Link's Audio Handbook by John D. Lank, and the other one is Troubleshooting and Repairing Compact Disc Players by Homer Davidson. 2 books I recommend. They've really helped me a lot. So that's a little tip for you if you can grab these books. I don't know if they're still in print or not, but you might find one at a Hamfest. I think the one on the right, I think I found at a Hamfest. So anyway, just a little tip. That's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't throw those old CD players away. Sometimes they can be put back in shape. Sometimes it just takes a little adjustment. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye for now. See you next time.